Glyph sockets are what I'm considering to be the most powerful addition to your endgame build that you get out of a Paragon board. You know, I'd be asking like, what about the rare nodes? What about the legendary nodes? All of those are important, don't get me wrong. But I really think that being able to min-max and efficiently build for glyph sockets for your character is going to be the best route to overall endgame scalability in form of damage as well as survivability. So what I have for you here is what I'm calling a glyph efficiency table, and I'm going to break it down so you can understand it, but it's a tool that I hope to make for each class so that just kind of walking into the game, you'll be able to go, okay, hey, I'm building on my Paragon board. I got these glyphs, however they're going to drop in the game. Where do I put these things? Let's go ahead and take a look. So the data here is a bit overwhelming, so I'm not going to start with the data. What I'm going to start with are the two examples that I think highlight what you need to understand about glyphs in general, and we're going to start there, and then we're going to work our way back over to here. I'm going to include timestamps to everything down below, so you can obviously just click around to the thing that you particularly want to look at. I have a couple example glyphs from the videos that the Diablo team has put out that I'm going to use as examples. These ones won't necessarily make sense for the Necromancer, but we're going to use them, and we're going to use this data moving forward. So let's first start with, what is a glyph socket? Well, if you were to look over at d4planner.io, you'll see the Paragon boards for each class. Again, this has been data mined, and let me just make this abundantly clear. All of this is subject to change. All of the stats that you see are subject to change. The orientation or the shape of the boards are subject to change. This was from the beta, and this is not a system that we were meant to see in game at that time. So just keep that grain of salt. All of it is subject to change at any time, but at the very least, this is what we have to work with, and it's still a good tool to be able to learn. But the glyph socket is oriented here and basically in the middle of your starter board. So you would start down here and you need to put Paragon points into the board as you go, so that you can get up to the socket and then unlock the socket. Unlocking the socket takes a Paragon point, and then once you have the socket unlocked, you can put a glyph into it. Glyphs are going to drop at some point in the end game. They have a radius to them. So the starter magic glyph that we see right here actually has a radius of 2. That is 2 nodes. So basically the radius for that particular one, and let me just get rid of these. Boop, boop. Would look something like this. All of these nodes that are highlighted would be within the 2 node radius of the magic glyph that we see in the video. As you can also see, it says that it's only level 1 and that the next radius size will increase at level 4, meaning that if you were to level up this magic glyph up to level 4 by running nightmare dungeons and getting the XP at the end of the dungeon, similarly to how you would level up gems in Diablo 3, you will increase the radius to 3. So if we were to increase the radius to 3 on this glyph, that would bump us out to here on all sides, boop, 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 and then we would gain access to these nodes being within our radius. So everything here that's lit up is within a 3 node radius in a square around the glyph socket. The reason why that's important is if we go back and look at that previous glyph and the stats that it's looking to prioritize. So here you'll see bonus. For every 5 intelligence purchased within range, you gain 0.8% increased damage to vulnerable targets. Intelligence being one of the nodes that you gain access to on your Paragon board. So everybody was like, oh, those like plain nodes that just say 5 stats, and it was kind of a joke. This is why they are important. Not only do they increase the stats of your character, meaning you gain more damage, more crit chance, etc., but it will empower the glyphs on your Paragon board as long as you unlock them within radius. So right here, this intelligence node would empower this glyph and you would get a bigger bonus out of it. Whereas this intelligence node all the way up here is outside of your radius and you wouldn't gain that bonus. So that's the bare minimum understanding of how a glyph works and what you need to understand about radius. It gets even more interesting when you look at a rare glyph. Rare glyphs are more powerful than magic glyphs, kind of like how items are in the game as well. Rare items are more powerful than magic items. And they start to gain additional bonuses for meeting a minimum requirement and then have additional bonuses even for the other nodes around them. So in this glyph socket, in the video Diablo 4 update where they did the live stream, they showed us the Tactician Rare Glyph. Tactician Rare Glyph has a couple really interesting stats on it and then a minimum requirement for it. So first, it says that it gives a plus 50% bonus to all rare nodes within its range. So let's go ahead and look at our first example on the starter board there. If we had put that glyph into this glyph socket, the rare node preservation and the rare node knowledge are within range. So since this says plus 50% bonus to those rare nodes, right here, this one's saying 5 damage and 10 intelligence, you would gain 7.5 damage and 15 intelligence, because that would be a 50% increase to those stats. Likewise, if you were to unlock the preservation node, you would gain an additional 50% on armor here, and then 15 intelligence in total. So whichever rare nodes are within range would gain that bonus. But again, this rare node down here for Prime is outside of the maximum range of a rare glyph, which looks to be a 4-node radius as far as we know at this point. So you wouldn't be able to empower this one. The other really important thing to note here is that it has an additional bonus if requirements are met. For the character that has this here, whenever they use a defensive skill, they would gain 10% increased damage for 4 seconds, as long as they had purchased 25 dexterity within range of this rare glyph. And if you look really closely, you can kind of see the red outline here outside of the cool fire effect that they have on it. But this red border here is the edge of this. This is currently a level 1 glyph. It only has a radius of 3 nodes, 1, 2, 3. It goes down to here, goes over to here, and likewise would go over to here where it's currently blocked by this image. As a quick note, from what we understand, leveling up the glyph doesn't only level up the radius of the glyph, but also upgrades the bonuses that you have on it. I'm not going to touch on that more because we haven't seen anything like that in game yet. There's things on the internet you could probably Google to go look at, but I'm not going to show them to you. But that's just another thing to understand as well. The plain bonuses here, which are relevant for the different nodes that you pick up around them, will get stronger too as you level it up. So it's really important to understand which type of rare nodes are within range, which type of magic nodes are within range, and how much dexterity, will, strength, or intelligence you're able to unlock within the radius of the glyph. We see here they have 1, 2, 3. These are dexterity nodes. They're not within range of anything else, so over here they must have 2 other dexterity nodes, so they've gained this bonus. So with our understanding of what like a magic and a rare glyph will look like, what type of requirements we can expect to see, what type of bonuses we might see, and the relevance of other nodes within range of it, it became very clear to me that it would be important for people to be able to look at the total amount of boards that they have for their class and be able to pinpoint the type of stats that are within range, the total amount of stats within range in case there are bonuses equal to how much dexterity, how much will, how much intelligence within range, like we saw with that blue glyph, and also what they can expect from magic and rare nodes also within range, because it turns out there is always 2 rare nodes within range of your glyph. Sometimes they are at the 3-node radius, and sometimes they're at the 4-node radius. And likewise, there are always 5 magic nodes around that rare node, which again are either within the 3 or 4 range node radius. So you need to be able to make decisions on the fly of what glyph to socket into where, what kind of stats you can expect to be able to unlock around it so you can meet requirements, and how to min-max your potential. So we made that datasheet. Now, I'll also make a shareable version of this datasheet available. I intend on building this out for every single class. So Necromancer, Druid, Sorceress, Rogue, and Barbarian, but I started with Necro since that's my main walking into the release of the game. And I looked at every single board that they had available. So you have your starter board plus 8 more boards. They will have different legendary nodes, different rare nodes, and different glyph sockets available to them. Interestingly enough, it's actually not always the same distance to a glyph socket on a board. It looks like 20 points is kind of the minimum to get to a glyph socket and then get out of a board across a different border. But some of them are actually a requirement of at least 22 points to be able to get to the glyph socket. So there's a little bit of efficiency gain there. And then I went out and tabulated how much of each stat was available within a 3-node radius. So just like a slightly upgraded magic glyph or a bare minimum rare glyph, and then how many stats were available within a 4-node radius. So this would be the maximum benefit according to what we currently understand and what you could expect to get out of the total amount of stats. Not only that, beneath each one of these sections, I also captured all of the magic bonuses that were within range, again between 3 and 4-node radius, and how many of the rare node bonuses. You'll notice that in some circumstances, the rare nodes were actually not within range in the 3-node radius, but instead were only available once they were within a 4-node radius. So in some circumstances, you might go, hey, I really want to put this glyph here but I know I won't be able to benefit from the rare node bonus if your glyph has that until I level up this glyph. So it might not be a good fit. So the last thing that you need to understand is what these crazy colors mean, right? Basically, what I went and did was I highlighted what was the highest total stat point in green within the radius. So you'll see that intelligence was always the highest stat radius within the glyph sockets for the Necromancer. Intelligence is our primary stat. It makes sense that they have the highest population on any board. Blue here represents what's the second highest amount of total stats. Orange is the third highest total amount of stats. And then red is the least amount of stats. And without going any deeper, you'll see that strength, the least important stat for a Necromancer, always had the least amount of total stats within radius. The same thing works for the 4 radius range. Green is best, blue is second best, orange is third best, and red is the worst. So here, if we were to use the example of Bone Graft, you'll notice that the second best had 25 points in it. I think that's going to be the minimum requirement for unlocking the majority of bonuses on rare glyphs if they're kind of standardized across the board. Whereas down here, while Will is still the third best option, it also meets the minimum requirement. So you are going to have to put on your thinking goggles every once in a while to be able to make more informed decisions. But I still wanted to show and have a consistent coloration here so you can go, okay, I know that if I'm looking at Bone Graft and I have it leveled up to have 4 range node, then boom, dexterity is going to be the strongest option outside of intelligence. Good, I know that. Moving on. So just very quickly, looking at this magic glyph, let's just go ahead and assume for the bare minimum amount of ease that it's already been leveled up and it can already reach the 3 node minimum. So the 3 node radius around it. And it says we want intelligence. Let's go ahead and look at which board has the best option available for me to quickly slot this glyph in when I unlock it. We'll see here that Flesh Eater, just to start off, actually doesn't have the most intelligence within the 3 node radius, whereas other things actually have much more. Very typically, there's about 50 intelligence in a 3 node radius around a glyph. So you might go, oh, okay, so you might think that Flesh Eater isn't your best node to start, and you'd be correct in thinking that. Maybe to start off, you actually just slot it straight into your starter board, since that's going to have 50 intelligence available around it. Then when you look at the 4 radius node, you realize that Flesh Eater actually has the most intelligence around it. It actually has 75 total intelligence that you could get from it. So you know that starting off, maybe you just drop that magic glyph into your starter board because it's not too much of a hassle to be able to get the maximum amount of intelligence. But later on, when you're respeccing your board and you're optimizing, you would actually end up dropping it into Flesh Eater instead. This is one of the things that you can very quickly see from the table. You can just look across and go, okay, which one's my best option here? Okay, which one's my best option across here? And that's a very simple decision that you could be making with it. The rare glyphs are where the decision making gets a little bit more interesting, and I have a couple different examples for that, but let's go ahead and look at it again just to refresh you. For this rare glyph, we both want powerful rare nodes within its radius, and we also want to be able to hit this dexterity minimum requirement. 25 dexterity isn't that hard to hit, and you're actually able to hit it on a 3 node or a basic node radius very early on. So here, looking across dexterity, we have a couple different options that actually reach the minimum of 25. So your starter board will hit there, the cult leader board will hit there. In addition to that, Bone Graft and Bloodbath will all hit that minimum requirement. So you could drop that glyph into any one of these boards and hit that minimum requirement for the added bonus. But what about the rare nodes gaining 50% benefit? Where should we socket it in there to be able to hit those benefits? Well, first we want to look at options that have rare nodes within a 3 node radius. So that's our starter board again. And then you'll also notice that Bone Graft has them within its radius and Bloodbath has it within its radius. So between these 3, they're actually all really good options. I actually put a little example note down beneath each one of them because they all kind of serve a similar purpose. When we look at the rare node benefits around this glyph that you could get in the starter board or you can get at the minimum dex requirement, you'll see that you have +5 to damage here in this cell and +10 to intelligence. Not only that, you have 125 armor and another +10 to intelligence. So what this shows you is that there are going to be 2 rare nodes within radius that you can hit the minimum dexterity requirement for, that are going to give you options for increasing your damage and increasing your survivability. Similarly, the Bone Graft board is going to allow you to hit that minimum dexterity requirement even within 3-node range. And on top of that, it has access to 2 rare nodes, one that's going to increase your bone damage as well as your intelligence, and the other one increasing your resistances. You're seeing a bit of a pattern here. Being able to pick up and put in this rare glyph will get you additional damage as well as additional survivability. This one more niche compared to a bone build as opposed to an overall build. But as the boards become more and more niche, the benefits that you get out of them also become more niche. So you might say, hey, while this meets all of my minimum requirements and I could put this glyph in and hit everything, it's gonna give me a bonus to bone damage. So while I'll get everything else, I'm not really a bone build. I probably shouldn't be looking at this. And then the last specialized option here would be bloodbaths. So again, minimum requirements are met even within a 3-node radius, and you're getting additional damage while fortified and additional healing, which are both fairly good. And I would also argue are probably pretty decent across most builds. But the type of Necromancer builds that are actually going to be able to benefit from this the most are the ones picking up blood orbs and fortifying when using blood skills. So if that's good for you, then you could toss the glyph right into here and save your starter glyph for something more easily accessible for your build or something that's harder to slot in. Or again, if this is too niche, then you've also chopped this one off from your considerations. Again, just being able to kind of look at it very quickly and go, oh, okay, I know these ones hit the requirements that I'm looking for, but they don't have the type of benefits I'm looking for. So I'll go ahead and axe these ones and I won't prioritize them. Instead, I'll make sure to drop this rare glyph into my starter board where I know it's going to be easy. I can kind of use that throughout the entirety of my build progression all the way up to level 100. And then when I'm looking to respec, I can go through again later and go, okay, this one isn't the best option here anymore. I can remove this. So while I haven't done this for every board within the datasheet, I did build out how I would prioritize making as minimum movements across the board as possible, picking up the rare nodes and the beneficial magic nodes along the way that I personally wanted for the build, being able to pick up the legendary node, and also getting the minimum requirements for the glyph itself. So here I was going to slot in an intelligence glyph within this range, since the rare node's going to give me 10 intelligence. There's a ton of intelligence around it to be able to hit a minimum requirement, and I'm able to easily path back out of the board to a new board in case I want to continue on. And every single node that I pick up here is valuable to me, skipping as many options for strength nodes as possible. So while the entirety of that kind of discipline and in min-maxing and theory crafting isn't something that is directly related to this particular tool that I'm building here, it is something that can inspire or give you a reason to then look further into any one Paragon board as you are theory crafting out and trying to build your own character. So what we built out here is assuming that we're using the blood begets blood board and we just want to get to the glyph socket for having as much willpower within its radius as possible. You build out to the glyph socket and then you prioritize the different blocks that you would need to get to as much willpower, minimizing the total investment. But let's say I actually don't build out of this board going anywhere. The stat sheet can help you make a decision like this, where you go, okay, this is going to be the last board that I build into because it doesn't have any rare nodes that I want to get the bonuses from, where if you're building out a lot of boards, the bonus requirements actually get higher and higher and higher. But you go, I don't want to build out to any rare nodes here. I just want the glyph. I just want the most willpower I can get. And I'm not looking to pick up a legendary node, any of the other rare nodes or magic nodes. And I'm not looking to get out of this board because it's the last one I'm going to have. You now know that this is an option available to you, and you can prioritize either respecking later and kind of min-maxing in this way, or just kind of having a roadmap in your mind where you go, okay, this board that has no value to me, but I have enough points to get to that glyph socket, here's how I'll build it. You know, it's going to take me 30 points to be able to invest in this in the way that I want to. But again, I'm not going to try to build out to any other nodes. I'm not going to try to leave the board to go to another board. These are the last 30 points I have, and I can build it out this way. That's something else that you can divine from the data that is available in this sheet. I hope that this is something that is valuable for you, or something that can kind of help you get the theory craft juices flowing. Again, I'm going to do this for every single class. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.